Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and after several tries, here is also your other co-host, John. John, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, man. Glad that we finally got some things working. It's had some kind
Yeah.
of, some glitches here and there, just trying to figure things out. You take a couple weeks off and everything just goes to crap.
Everything
It all
just goes
falls apart.
StreamYard. Did StreamYard everyone take an extra long vacation? Are they still? I respect that if they gave their employees like 2 weeks for Christmas,
Yeah.
but like something, it wasn't working. But now we think it's working, so we're gonna try to execute this podcast. Well, it is working. John, how were your holidays?
They were, good, fine. I was exhausted. I finally feel like a human being again after being on the road for the last 2 months and getting little to no sleep for most of that time.
Right.
And grueling schedule. But now I'm back home, which is great. So happy to be home back in Minnesota, and off the road. So yeah, it's great. How about you?
Welcome home.
Good to be back.
Oh, my holidays were awesome, man. We did both with my family in the cities here, and then with my significant other in Indiana. But then after we did the Indiana part, my significant other got sick. And so we got stuck here for a little bit. So
Gotcha.
I have been doing things remotely. I will be going back to the cities tomorrow.
Okay.
But I have been stuck in Indiana. Let me tell you, man, there's just not a lot going on in West Lafayette.
Gotcha.
I've been here for games. I suspected as much. But yeah, not a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's a vibrant college town in its own way, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But in the middle of winter with kind of stuck here, not ideal.
Yeah. Dinky Town's where it's at, man.
Dinky Town is where it's at. And I was like, and we got it all. Everything came through. We got the white Christmas. It was awesome.
That's great.
So, I had the holiday seasons. It sucks that, what we dealt with after, but the holidays themselves were really good. And transition, the football watching holidays have been fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Honestly, it could have gone better in certain ways, but overall, man, I have little to complain about.
Yeah. I mean, it's we can get into it right now.
Well, I'll start first just to get it out of the way.
You go first.
For people, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, as usual, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike here at Alibaba26. And you can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can also email us, WeLiveForSaturdayB1G@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, we should talk about the postseason now that we're here.
We gotta. There's lots.
We've gone through. Bowl season is over.
Yep.
So it was a successful bowl season, and it was a lot of fun as always. It went out with a whimper as Liberty decided to just not show up for the last bowl game, and the Buffalo Bulls took it to them. That was pretty funny. Yep. I always like when Liberty struggles because they're corrupt in their own. We don't even. That's a whole different, bag of worms. But but I enjoyed watching them lose. But it has been a great bowl season, John. How have you felt about bowl season?
I felt great, honestly. A couple teams let me down, or one particular team really only let me down, and really that was Rutgers. I thought Rutgers was going to be able to take it, but they did not. But other than that, everything went exactly the way I wanted it to go. The teams I wanted to lose lost, and the main team that I wanted to win won, and in convincing fashion. And also, the Big Ten just dominating as far as the Bulls and in the college football playoff.
Dominating.
And
I believe the Big Ten has a master record of, correct me if I'm wrong, 9-5.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the SEC has a record of 8-6.
Yeah.
Which those are similar, but head to head, the Big Ten is 4-1 against the alleged mighty SEC.
Yeah.
And I just got to say 4-1, man, that's a pretty good sample size, and that's pretty lopsided. And it goes both in the bowls and in the college football.
Yeah. I mean, there really isn't an SEC team left in the college football playoff. Technically there is. But
technically Texas is a SEC team now, I guess. They've been there for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, but they're not, in my opinion, technically an SEC team yet. And I mean, they are technically, but they are not in spirit.
I mean, it's a Big 12 roster.
Yes.
All those guys were recruited to, just about all those guys, except for the true freshmen and the transfers, were recruited to play in the Big 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't like, yeah, in a sense, there's one SEC team, but in a sense, there's no SEC teams. No traditional SEC teams, that's for sure.
Nope. No, and we also got to see that, playing up north, playing, we know we talked about this already, like in some real weather and elements, made a difference and factored in. And we're just glad to see that it's not all of these bowl games and these playoff games are essentially home games for the SEC, and which they have been for decades now at this point. And now it's nice to see these on-campus games being played, and then getting to see some of these other teams, fare better and have their fan base show up. And it's been awesome, man. Honestly, it's been the 12-team playoff, in my opinion, has been an absolute success.
Yes. And I was skeptical.
Yeah.
I was so skeptical about it. And I don't want to see it expand again. I feel like 12 is like, I feel like any more is too many.
Yeah.
But 12 is, it's kind of a good sweet spot. The only thing they screwed up really is that they should have the 4 buys just in order of how you're ranked in the playoff poll.
Yes, that I agree.
They shouldn't tie that. Like, you should, yes, I think the 5 highest ranked conference champions or 4 highest ranked conference champions deserve to be in for sure.
Yeah.
But it should be like it is in basketball, where, if you win a tiny conference, you're going to be in the NCAA tournament, but you might be a 15 seed or a 16 seed. You're not necessarily going to be like a 1 or a 2 seed. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I mean, I could, there could also be arguments made for like the first 2 rounds also being on campus. I think that would be good. We saw how well that did and how much the fan bases appreciated that. And I just think that'd be really cool, man. Like, when everybody's been talking about it and said it would be a good idea for a long, long, long time, but obviously these TV networks are the ones who are calling the shots, not the fans, which is too bad. But we'll see. Maybe things will change. I know they're going to change the format. I mean, they're already talking about it. We'll see if they add more or subtract or whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if they added more, but I agree. I hope they do the seeding a little differently with the buys for sure. Yeah.
And also, home field is cool and whatever, and it matters to an extent. But Ohio State could have played Tennessee on the first surface of the sun.
Yeah.
Or they could have played them in Tennessee with all Vols fans. It wouldn't have made any difference.
It's true.
They would have dog walked them regardless. That was not, you know what I mean? So I think home field is a factor. I think that, the Tennessee and SMU players at times looked uncomfortable, but let's not pretend like those games would have been, those games would have been the same no matter where you played them.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And the SEC still has the benefit of being closer to most of their postseason games than the Big Ten ever does.
Yeah.
So they still have an advantage, but it's not bearing out for them, is it?
No, it's not.
And we a couple podcasters might have told you going into this year that the Big Ten, coming off a national championship, coming off being the best conference last year, which people didn't want to admit, even though it was true both in the bowl, in the bowl games and in the playoff. Well, this year with an expanded playoff, and the bowl games, there's been no question about it. Yep. The Big Ten has dominated.
Yeah. It is the best conference in college football in 2024-25. And
it just comes down to, man, it just comes down to, for all those years, all those schools were paying people under the table, and places like the University of Minnesota were playing by the rules.
Yeah.
And the places that were playing by the rules couldn't recruit as well as the places that weren't playing by the rules. And now everybody can pay, and we see a ton more parity. And all of a sudden, that SEC thing, it's a little bit of a turned out to be a little bit of a house of not cards, but a house of bag men.
Yep.
And bag men don't matter anymore.
Yep.
They don't.
Well, and that's why it's so funny when you see like Alabama's AD like start crying about how we need to like spend more money. We've been doing it the right way for so long, but you know what? Now like we better step up and change our ways. And like it's like, what? You're like one of the main culprits of cheating for decades. And we talked about this, about how the SEC never gets caught, but the Big Ten, everybody tattles on each other.
Go on.
No, I'm just, and now like you were just saying, like now that the playing field has been made more even, it's not even by any means, but it's now there's more equity, and we're seeing people, we're seeing it happen on the field. I mean, look at what Arizona State and Texas has so much more money than Arizona State,
exponentially more,
so much more. But look at what Arizona State did. They almost beat Texas.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue that if it wouldn't have been for a terrible missed targeting call that would get called if anyone else did it on Texas, that Arizona State wins that game.
Absolutely, but that didn't fit the narrative that the College Football Playoff Committee wanted.
Oh, can you imagine if Texas had been knocked out and the SEC literally didn't have any teams left?
It would have been amazing, and frankly, that's the way it should be. But again, ESPN would have, I mean, it would have been horrible for them. They would have hated it, and they would have cried about it the entire time. And
it's been horrible for them because their narrative that they tried to set up, that the SEC was superior and everyone else was a house of cards, has blown up entirely in their face with the Big Ten's dominance, not just in the playoff, but head to head against the SEC 4 out of 5 games. Which is, that's a really good sample size. And in most of those games, the Big Ten team was the underdog.
Yes, it was.
So to come out and do that in games, Paul Feinbaum, of all people, came out and said, hey, took out a towel, said, I'm waving the white flag on Alabama. He's admitting that Alabama was a house of cards. He's admitting that Alabama had no business being in the playoff conversation. And the same is true for South Carolina, who also lost to a Big Ten team, as we'll talk about.
Lost to the Big Ten team that, if they were going to make an argument for putting a 3-loss team in, should have been the one in the College Football Playoff, not South Carolina, not Alabama.
No.
So,
no, and we saw that on the field when South Carolina played Illinois.
Yes, we did.
Didn't we? And we'll talk about all of that.
Yes, we will. Yep. But yeah, it's amazing to see Paul Feinbaum, which I'm very surprised he did that. Obviously, there are others that are not coming out and admitting that, such as Kirk Herbstreit, such as Josh Pate, such as certain people. Even, I don't know if you saw this as well. I think it was posted either earlier today or yesterday. On 3, Ari Wasserman and I can't remember the other guy's name. Andy Staples posted a whole like way too early top 25 or top 10 or whatever the hell it was. And I think it was 2/3 SEC teams.
It was wall to wall SEC teams. They put Auburn in their top 10
and Florida.
Auburn went 5. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But Florida, you can be like, they won a couple of games late. They have DJ Legway. Like, they recruit really well. I can almost talk myself into Florida. Auburn went 5-7.
Yep.
Auburn's terrible. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're awful.
Auburn's been bad for a long time.
And they don't have a quarterback.
Yep.
And they don't they don't really have a defense. Like, they're awful. So putting them in an early top 10, dude, you're trying to rile me up because that I think Ari Wasserman is like the absence of thought.
Yeah.
It's like if you just took a bunch of takes and like put them in somebody's ear and then had like a gobbledygook combination of them come out of their mouth. That's Ari Wasserman. Like, he's the least thoughtful pundit, that like major pundit that continues to get work for reasons that I don't really understand, because he's never had an insightful thing to say ever. But yeah, of course he has Florida and Auburn in his top 10. Of course he does.
Well, and that's just what it is. It's so hilarious of how much the last
But not Michigan. But not Michigan, right? Even though Michigan recruits better than Auburn.
Yeah. It's just funny to me that, like, no matter what just happened, everything that the entire college football world just witnessed in the last couple of weeks, and that has been getting called out on with ESPN, Paul Feinbaum, Josh Pate, all these guys that love to just toot the horn for the SEC, and they're just the biggest shills out there. Um, they're being exposed and being trolled incessantly still
But
today.
good for
And
Feinbaum for admitting it.
yes, and and I respect that. But I just think it's funny that like these idiots have the audacity to then put this out there, and I don't care if they're like, oh
Oh
well,
my
it's a
God,
way,
it's
way, way
amazing.
too early. You're already setting that narrative.
Yeah.
The season technically isn't even
Isn't
over.
even over yet.
And you're already trying to set the narrative that the SEC is still going to be the most dominant conference next year. It's like, what are you talking about?
After 2 years of Big Ten dominance. After 2 consecutive, and I'm calling it right now because we've got 2 out of 4 teams. It's going to be 2 consecutive Big Ten national titles.
Yep.
Probably. There's a
I don't see how
better
anyone's stopping Ohio
better
State.
than 50% chance that the winner of the whole thing is going to be a Big Ten team.
Yes, there is. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that would be 2 consecutive years with the Big Ten at the top of the sport, and also the Big Ten winning the most postseason games.
Yeah. Yep.
And compared to the other 4 conference, like all good to the is it the American that did so awesome?
Yeah.
But like
yeah.
I'm talking about the major conferences.
Yep. Yeah.
The Big Ten has been the best by far, and it's just like that. It's the Big Ten, and then it's the SEC, and then it falls off a cliff for the Big 12, and then it falls all the way off a cliff for the ACC, who's 2-11.
Embarrassing.
2-11.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, dude, the fall of the ACC has been from where Clemson was a few years back when they were winning national titles, has been stratospheric as a conference.
Yeah. Well, I know we're not talking expansion right now, but if you don't think that that's not going to make more schools want to run to the other Power 2 schools, the SEC and the Big Ten, it's going to happen, dude. They're going to want to get out even more now at this point.
Yeah.
So.
I don't think we need them, though. But we'll move on. We were not going to talk about that. We have a whole offseason when we can drag up expansion takes.
But
right now we're going to talk about football.
Yeah, but it is very apparent, and it was last year, and we talked about it at length, and again this year. If there is anyone, which it will happen, be prepared for them to start to weave the narrative back in very shortly, whether it's ESPN, whether it's the people at On3, whether it's the Josh Pates of the world that are going to start to weave in that narrative slowly but surely that the SEC is still somehow better and should be considered that way and has earned that right to have the benefit of the doubt even again this next year, because it'll happen. You'll see it.
Of course it will. Of course it will. So. But people are tuning it out, and a lot more media are pushing back. Now, I will say it's embarrassing. Like, let me talk to Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk, buddy, you have had the most successful media run of any college football personality in my lifetime since Keith Jackson. Yep. Things have gone really well for you. You can admit when you were wrong. You can just say it. You can say, hey, you know how I was arguing that Alabama lost and Miami lost and South Carolina lost, should have had a shot at the playoff? Yeah, I was wrong about all those teams.
Yeah.
And he could do that, but he won't, because his skin is so thin that he can't. And I saw he had a tweet where he responded. Someone was just like, hey, man, you want to just say you were wrong? And he's like, I'm not going to let the haters define me. And I'm like, oh, my God, dude, you're a child. And that's what happens when people. He was like 26 when he got on game day, man. He was too young. And that's what happens when people don't pay their dues and they become too successful, too young, is they have no perspective. And Kirk Herbstreit has no perspective.
No.
It's embarrassing. Like, I'm embarrassed for him in how silly he looks. It's like the elephant in the room, man. You laid down the law. You said Indiana, SMU didn't belong and blah, 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 and the SEC and all that stuff. And it was all wrong. You were wrong about everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
And it's so funny how I used to get so much more annoyed by Desmond Howard than him. And I used to be like, oh, Kirk's fine. Kirk's okay. Whatever.
But well, because Desmond doesn't really do his homework.
No.
Like Kirk like at least like grades out the film and takes notes. Desmond isn't taking notes on film. Desmond's taking mental notes because he doesn't care, because he's been coasting on a Heisman for 30 years. But I agree with you that at least he's being real about things.
Yeah. Where Kirk, it's like he made a stance and he drew a line in the sand and he is just refusing to cross back or erase it or what. He's just done, man. And
And Corzo's too old to call him on it.
It's so weird. Like, why? Like, what a hill to die on.
It's such a weird hill to die on. And like what he doesn't realize is that between this and the Florida State like slander last year, he's just not. He used to be the voice of this sport. He's not. No, he's not.
He's lost all integrity.
Big 10 and Big 12 fans and ACC fans, like, unless you're an SEC fan, Kirk Herbstreit, I mean, forget Ohio State fans. They hate him.
Oh, they're done.
Kirk Herbstreit is just not the voice of the sport anymore. He doesn't have that. He's in the last 2 years, he has squandered that perch.
Yep.
And it's his choice. He did it.
Yep.
He didn't have to go all in on the narratives. He could have, he's smarter than that. You don't think Kirk, he knows ball. He had to know that he was going out on a limb with that. He had to know he was probably wrong. And he said it anyway, because that's who pays him.
And that's the also confusing thing to me, like with these shills that are so bought in and so committed to ESPN and that narrative that they've been forced to push. I'm like, what do they have something over you, Kirk? Like, are they holding your family hostage? Like, blink twice if everything's okay. Like, tell us what's going on, buddy. Like, did they kill your dog? I don't know. Like, is that what happened?
Kirk's got some skeletons. That's all we'll say. I'm not going to say what.
True.
But Kirk has some well-known skeletons. And if we were that kind of podcast, I could go off on it. But I'm not gonna, because it's not my business.
No.
But like, Kirk has skeletons. So yeah, they could, is what I'm saying, John. They could absolutely, they could put something in the media tomorrow to crush Kirk. Yeah. Based on what they know about his life.
It's just, and it's just, that's what it makes you wonder. I'm like, what did they just make him sign some blood pact that like, you are not to speak ill of our sacred SEC?
Oh my God. Do you think Greg Sankey was wearing a robe?
Maybe.
I think there was like, and he smeared blood on his head.
Yeah.
In the shape of a football. Oh man,
he's got
also silly. Kirk Herbstreit, you're a joke, man. You've made yourself a joke, and you're rich, and you probably got more money than everyone commenting on you put together. Yeah, but it's embarrassing. It is. Yeah, it's embarrassing for you.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It is nice to see that there's people that are pushing back. There are people even in the national media that are starting to push back. It's wonderful.
Even Nicole Arbach, and she's usually a mouthpiece for whatever. Yeah. And even she was like, hey, now let's rein this in. Yeah. And
I think
for her to call BS, like she's not usually the one calling BS.
No.
She was trying to prop up Notre Dame right after they lost to Notre Dame.
I know.
So she's got her own agendas that she follows too. But even she was like, hey guys, what are we doing?
Yeah. I just think it's nice to see it. It's insulting that those people, essentially what they're telling most college football fans is that you're a bunch of idiots and you don't know anything about anything. No. When in fact it's very evident, especially you just go on college football Twitter for like a day or two and you'll see that the fans know probably a hell of a lot more than most of those national media pundits do, especially ones like Kirk Herbstreit or Paul Feinbaum and whatever. Not that these guys don't know ball. I'm not saying that, but a lot of these fans know a hell of a lot more than what they're given credit for. And to be told year after year after year, when they set these false narratives with these, with preseason rankings and all this kind of stuff, that the SEC has been this dominant force that is just unstoppable and will always and forever be that. It's not that way anymore, man.
NIL changed everything.
No, we found the wizard behind the curtain, man. Like it's all smoke and mirrors. Like it is done. It's not real.
Oh my God.
So, Dorothy found
just like Nick Saban in 3 trench coats.
That's it. Like
with a smoke machine.
So it's nice to see that people are calling them out on it and not buying into it anymore. That we're not being sold this stuff.
Oh, dude, I don't like the comedian Shane Gillis, but when he went on game day and said, "Yeah, Nick Saban, you were paying players," before NIL.
Amazing.
And Nick's like, we did things the right way. I'm like, no, you didn't. You're lying. You're lying, and Urban Meyer's lying, and everyone who won a national title in the last 50 years is lying.
Yep.
You were all cheating. We know it. The stories are there. The evidence is there. And now you can't do it anymore because everybody can cheat.
Yep.
Everybody can pay.
Yep.
And so you have players. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great. And for the Big Ten to usurp the SEC so quickly is poetic, really. Because I didn't think it was going to happen this fast. I thought Michigan was going to win a national title once we saw them last year.
Sure.
But there was no guarantee that the Big Ten was going to have the best teams this year.
No.
And Ohio State and forget, Oregon's out of it. Oregon beat Penn State, and they're not even in it anymore. So really, you could have, if the seeding had been different, you could have had 3 Big Ten teams.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
If Oregon didn't get the worst draw of any one seed ever.
I know. They really did. But it really should be. I mean, I do think the best 3 teams in college football right now are Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. And I don't think there's really an argument against that.
I mean,
you could. But
Texas is in there somewhere.
I still think all 3 of those teams could beat Texas. I just do.
Oh, they could for sure. Yeah. I think Oregon and Ohio State would be. We know Ohio State's favored. I think Oregon would also be favored over Texas. Yeah. I think Texas would be favored over Penn State.
Probably.
But does that mean they'd win? Not necessarily.
No.
Should we get into all these games that we won since we're the Big Ten?
Well,
first of all, you want to talk about the Rose Bowl.
I just wanted to just a question, and I'd love it if fans wanted to chime in and let us know what they think too. I wanted to hear your thoughts on this whole thing because it's being thrown around as a permanent base for the national title game, and a lot of people, obviously, for years we've talked about this. And you and I have talked about the Big Ten championship game being at the Rose Bowl. But now there's some big name people keep throwing that around as the national title game, which I get it. I understand it. I get it. I see why that's a big thing. It's the granddaddy of them all. There's so much history, tradition, blah, 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 blah.
It's a beautiful venue. It really is. I got to go. I had the privilege of seeing a game there, not the actual Rose Bowl, but I saw a game there this year.
Yeah.
And it was great,
Yeah. And I think that's cool, and in a lot of ways I understand it. And I'm not necessarily outright against it, but I'm also very protective of it because the Rose Bowl has already lost so much of its original meaning when it became a playoff site.
Yeah.
And that was one thing. And now, and it was nice to see 2 Big Ten teams, or former Pac team and Big Ten team play in the Rose Bowl this year.
Yeah, the traditional really cool. Big Ten Pac. Yeah,
exactly.
Matchup.
But with it becoming the site of the national title game, I don't know, man. It just to me, and I'm a traditionalist. Admittedly, I'm very much a traditionalist. So that this is coming from a person with that point of view. So obviously, there's a lot of people who can argue against it, and I understand we got to progress, and it's blah 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 blah. But I don't know, man. I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest with you.
No, I think the national title game should move every year.
Yeah.
I'm of that belief. I don't think that any one part of the country should get to own that. Yeah. And I don't just mean in warm places. I think the national title should be played in Indianapolis, maybe Minneapolis some year. Like I think like the Super Bowl, which is gets played everywhere.
Yep.
There's no reason the national title game shouldn't be played all over. But no, I don't want to see, if you want to do it one year, have a Rose Bowl national title. Okay.
Sure.
Do it once every, I don't know, 8 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. But no, I don't want to see that become a permanent site because that would diminish the actual Rose Bowl game, which continues to be played and has the Rose Parade and all that kind of stuff. And man, when I lived in LA and I tutored somebody who was like, one of her things was being queen in the Rose Parade. And man, to qualify is crazy.
Wow.
Those girls are training for that from birth.
Dang.
Like academics, extracurriculars, like political connections, all of it.
Wow.
They're training from birth. to try to get in there. So it is like it's not just a football game. It is this big parade. It's this big community event.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't want to see that taken. I don't want to see it taken away from any more than it already has. So no, I don't. So I'm with you. I don't want to see the Rose Bowl become a permanent site for the national title game. And I think if you're pushing for that, you're kind of missing the forest for the trees when it comes to what makes the Rose Bowl special.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it should rotate just like the Super Bowl, and it does. It just makes more sense that way to me. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just want to hear what your thoughts were, and let us know, anyone out there, what your thoughts are as well, please. Cool.
Should we take a victory lap through bowl season before we preview these college football playoff semifinal games?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's try to run through these. We got a lot to cover.
All right, we got first up. We had the rate. I'm just gonna do this in the order they happened. The Rate Bowl, the 9-4 Kansas State Wildcats pulled out a stunner 44-41 over the 7-6 Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Kyle Monangai did not end up playing in this game. Had they had him, I don't think they lose, but such is life in bowl season. Game was tied 10-10 in the second quarter when Rutgers took over, and took over they did. The Scarlet Knights went on a 24-7 run in the second and third quarters, breaking off big runs, including a 65-yarder by Antoine Raymond to set up a TD. QB Ethan Kaliak-Manis had several big completions on their scoring drive, so it wasn't just the run game taking over. Suddenly, with 8 minutes left in the third quarter, Rutgers led 34-17. That 3-score lead looked insurmountable the way the Rutgers D was playing. But immediately after that, Ethan Kaliak-Manis threw a pick, which set up K-State with great field position. K-State capitalized again, and once again, before that, K-State broke off a 65-yard Dylan Edwards TD to cut it to 34-23. Then, after that, Ethan threw the interception, which set up K-State with great field position. K-State capitalized again. Once again, the 2-point try failed. It's now 34-29. And with the game on the line, Rutgers and K-State traded 3-and-outs. Rutgers had a big kick return, which set up a short field for an easy TD to make it 41-29 with 14 minutes left in the game. Seemed that once again, Rutgers was in control. But K-State rattled off a 14-play, 85-yard scoring drive, and right after that, forced a 3-and-out. It was now 41-36 Rutgers. K-State scored in just 3 plays on a big pass play by Avery Johnson to Joe Jackson, and then a Dylan Edwards run for a 36-yard TD. That made the score 44-41 K-State. The Wildcats had taken the lead, but Rutgers had one more chance to win the game. And on the game-defining third down, with plenty of space to run for the first down or to sit back and throw for it, Ethan Kaliak-Manis, quarterback of the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, simply fell down. He fell down. There's nobody around him. There's nobody near him. Just fell down. And folks, that defines the Ethan Kaliak-Manis experience. He's the opposite of clutch. If there was a clutch gene, he is the opposite of the clutch gene. Then on fourth down, he threw an incompletion, and the game was over. So Ethan will play well at times, and for much of this game, he did. But man, when they needed him the most, he failed. And that is how it goes just about every time Ethan needs to produce in a tight spot. Kansas State QB Avery Johnson finished just 15-30, 195 yards, 6.5 yards per attempt, 4 TDs, total TDs, 1 pick for a QBR 71.4. So Rutgers did a pretty good job containing Johnson, as his passing stats were pedestrian, and he only managed 57 yards rushing the ball. So they did a good job there. But running back Dylan Edwards, man, put up 196 yards on just 18 carries, nearly 11 yards per rush. That's bananas. 11 yards per rush. That's crazy talk.
Yeah.
He also had 2 TDs, including the game winner. Just can't say enough about how great Edwards was in this game. K-State's receivers didn't really do anything. Jace Brown had 5 catches for 60 yards, but no one else had more than 3 grabs. And linebacker Austin Moore had an awesome game with 6 tackles, including 1.5 tackles for loss. For Rutgers, QB Ethan Kaliak-Manis finished an abysmal 14 for 32, well under 50% completions, 237 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt, 1 TD, and 1 costly pick for a QBR of 63.3. The fact that Ethan still frequently has games with below 50% completions is just an indictment of his accuracy or lack thereof. He regresses at big moments. Running back Antoine Raymond did a good job subbing for Kyle Monangai. with 113 yards and just 18 carries, 6.3 yards per rush, 3 TDs. So great game from him. And Ian Strong led Rutgers with an impressive performance at wide receiver, 5 catches, 105 yards. He did his part for Rutgers. It just wasn't enough to hold on to victory when the QB kept missing receivers late in the game, as Ethan did. John, what'd you think about this one?
Look, I thought Rutgers had this in the bag.
It was over.
Like it was
over.
It really was. And then, like you said, the only thing that could stand in the way of a Rutgers victory is Ethan Kaliakmanis, and that's exactly what happened. Because look, Antoine Raymond is going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem. He is really good.
Yeah,
he's a true freshman, I believe, and he is going to continue to get better. And I think they, obviously they would have won had Ethan not done Ethan things. Obviously, having Kyle Monangai there would have, of course, helped and maybe guaranteed, some of these mistakes not happen in some ways, maybe not, but maybe not. But it's just so typical. And in Rutgers fans, like, I feel for you because you see the talent. You see when he does make these plays and he makes these throws, and you're like, oh man, this guy's really good, because he can be great.
Yeah, and he's athletic. He's big. He looks good. Looks good.
But then he is his own worst enemy, and he does these things, and then he falls apart. And that's exactly what he did after that interception.
No touch.
Yeah, no. And so there was that. But also, to be fair, Dylan Edwards was not human. He was superhuman in this game.
Amazing.
And they just couldn't. The run blocking, K-State's run blocking was fantastic. And for whatever reason, Rutgers just could not stop this guy. No. And it was incredible to watch him run the ball. And he's a little guy, too. He's not even that big. But
dude, K-State and small running backs. I mean, so now it's Dylan Edwards. It was Deuce Vaughn.
Yep.
It was Darren Sproles.
Yep.
They've just, man, if there's a guy out there who's 5'6", 165 pounds and totally unstoppable, he plays in Manhattan.
Yeah. So this guy was amazing. Yeah. So I was impressed with that. They definitely didn't give up. But Rutgers, I know they're going to be sticking with Ethan. They have to, but
they don't have to, but they're gonna.
They're going to.
Yeah.
Well, they sure didn't. To my knowledge, I don't think they recruited anybody out of the transfer portal for as
that's
quarterback.
What I'm saying.
Yeah.
They made that choice. They decided to pay him.
Yep. So we'll see, Rutgers. Look, 7-6, 7-win season. Great. This program is still moving forward. Shiano is still doing a good job. It's just going to be frustrating with Ethan at the helm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this one stings. Rutgers was this close to 8 wins, but they made some offensive mistakes, let off the gas, opened the door for K-State to make a comeback. They could have buried the Wildcats, but instead they allowed them back in the game. And a big part of that was the interception and the incompletions and the third down just falling down. I mean, man, it was 7 yards. You or I could have run for that first down. I mean, there was nobody around. But so it is what it is. I think until Rutgers has a better QB, this is probably what the ceiling is. But I will say the floor is high now.
Yes, it is.
The floor is high. The defense is really good. If you show up against Rutgers without your A game, they can beat you, and they'll make you pay for it.
Yep.
But with Ethan, the ceiling's kind of low, So I think next year, I think they should be able to win 6 to 8 games, but I'm not going to pick them to win any more than that.
No.
It's going to be somewhere in there. Because I just don't think Ethan. I don't think a leopard changes its spots at a certain point. He has improved. I give Kirk Chiraka at offensive coordinator a lot of credit for that.
Yep.
But I just don't think there's enough improvement left under him to get to where he would need to get for Rutgers to be a little more of a threat. But I mean, it looks like Rutgers is gonna go right on without Kyle Monangai. So it seems like they're in a good spot. As good. I mean, obviously it'll hurt. It'll hurt to lose him. He's a special player.
Yeah.
But it looks like they've got some other guys on the roster who can make it happen.
Yep.
So that's exciting. And to have a Frosh look like he's the next star running back, that's exciting stuff.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So won 7 games, finished 4-5 in the Big Ten. Doesn't sound like a ton. It's just a big step up from where they've been. Making 2 consecutive bowls shows the progress Schiano has made. Greg Schiano is a good football coach. As long as he's in Piscataway, Rutgers will be competitive.
Absolutely.
For sure. All right, moving on. Las Vegas Bowl. We have this now 7-6. USC Trojans 35. The 8-5 Texas A&M Aggies 31. This is another Big Ten over SEC result. John, I was dead wrong about this game. I thought USC would be a total miss without their top skill players, but credit to Lincoln Riley. He shut out all that portal noise, put together a great game plan with the guys he had available. That's what it takes to win in the modern college football postseason. Game didn't start great for USC. They went 3-and-out. Texas A&M had this masterful 16-play, 78-yard drive that took 7 minutes off the clock. It just felt like they were in control. But USC, did a good job. They bounced back after a few consecutive punts. They woke up. They had the TD drive, missed a field goal, but they went into halftime tied 7-7. They had thrown a pick as well. And then the rest of the game was just crazy. A&M was out 17-7. Then USC cut it to 24-21. Then they took the lead to make it 28-24. A&M took the lead back with a touchdown. But with the game on the line, Jaden Mayava, QB, led a flawless 2-minute drill for the winning score. He was decisive, confident, and accurate. I've given Mayava a hard time on this show for his shortcomings. You have too. So it's only fair that we point out when he gets the job done. Well, Jaden Mayava got the job done. And this game, for the first time, made me think that maybe, not sure, not saying he is, but maybe he's could be the guy next season. Maybe. This is the closest I've seen to him to make me think that there's a chance.
Yes. I'm still not sold entirely because of some of the same mistakes he made with the picks and the ridiculous decision making and But he was clutch, and that's a big deal.
And this is a talented Texas A&M defense.
Yes, it's true. Yeah.
So to put up that stat line and that stuff against them, I thought was pretty impressive.
Yes.
USC, especially because USC couldn't run the ball. They had only had 105 yards rushing on 31 attempts, 3.4 yards per rush. Woof. So it was the passing game that carried the game. Dude, Mayava, he was all over the place. He was 22 for 39, but for almost 300 yards.
Yeah.
Only 6.6 yards per attempt, but 4 TDs, but 3 picks. It's a ride with him, right?
Well, and it helps when you have guys like Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon. And Mekhi Lemon, I think Mekhi Lemon is what I think they were hoping Zachariah Branch was going to be. I mean, I know Jacoby Lane put up had more yards, but Mekhi Lemon was the one who was making these electric, crazy plays like all over the field, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon, man, they seem like they should be the top 2 receivers.
Yeah.
Like, if you got these guys going next year, they seem like you're in a good spot. And I don't know if Kyle Ford had 6 for 59 at a TD also. So they got some different guys to contribute. Sophomore D end Braylon Shelby had a nice day with 4 tackles, including a sack. So good day for him from that edge spot. For A&M, Marcel Reed, the QB, had his ups and downs, going 26 for 42, 7 yards per attempt, 3 TDs, but 2 costly picks in short succession, which really hurt the Aggies in that first half. Running back Ruben Owens and QB Marcel Reed combined for 102 yards rushing on 22 carries. So they did okay running the ball, but not great. USC did a better job than I thought they were going to do stopping the run.
Yeah.
The passing game was mostly the offense, as wide receiver Jabray Walker had 7 grabs for 48 yards and a TD. Nobody else had more than 3 catches, though, as Reed spread the ball around to 8 different receivers. John, what'd you think of this one?
Well, good job by the Trojans coming back, fighting back, and with Mayava coming in clutch at the end. I think that's huge. You definitely have to recognize that. They obviously still have wide receiver talent there, like we said, with Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon. My main issue, though, still, this whole season, it's not been the players. It's still their head coach. And I need to ask, it didn't matter. It didn't change the outcome of the game. They still won. But Lincoln Riley, why did you not take a timeout when you were on the 2 and you took a delay of game instead? What were you trying to lose? What are you doing? What is your problem?
Yeah,
buddy?
dude.
Like, why? Like,
You got to be awake.
Everyone
there.
a heart attack.
Yeah. There's got to be somebody on staff who's the timeout clock guy, who's like, who stands next to you and is like, dude, you need a timeout right now. And you can be like, oh no, because I get it. You get caught up in the game.
Sure.
You're thinking about the calls, and like Lincoln Riley calls plays and like all that kind of stuff. But you got to have a guy. You've got a million guys on staff. There has to be a emergency timeout guy who stands next to you, who stands right behind you all game. Like he's not there until you need him. And he's like, coach, we need a timeout. You know?
Yeah.
How do you not have that guy? I don't understand.
I mean, I
dude, how many times have we had as PJ Fleck bailed out a timeout when we thought we were getting a delay of game?
Yep.
And they throw the flag and they're like, nope, it's a timeout.
Yep.
Like, this is just a thing you expect people to do. Coaches have to be. And like in that juncture of the game, yeah, that's rough, man.
Dude, like I right there. And again, we've the person who is the biggest problem when it comes to that program is the head coach. Yeah. That's it. And it's and it's going to continue to be that way. And look, he won. Congratulations, Lincoln Riley. But you were trying to lose at the last seconds of that game. You were. That's the way it came across. I'm sorry,
dude. He needs to go to like game management school. Like in the off season, I don't know. Like who's like they need like a retired coach who was really good at. What's Frank Solich doing? You know what I mean? Like they need like a retired coach who is good at it. Or like, and who can be like, hey, now's when you call a timeout. Hey, maybe now's when you run the ball.
Yeah.
Hey, stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
Because like he's gonna blow $100 million contract because he can't make in-game decisions.
Oh, yeah. So that's all. That's my only real gripe. Otherwise, congratulations.
I love how I went into this thinking we were going to do nothing but praise USC. I was all ready to do it. And now we're like, yeah, Lincoln Riley's still kind of questionable. And you know what? It's going to be a make or break year for him next year. So like, because like, he can't have another year. He can't go 7-6 again.
No.
Like they won't stand for it.
Nope.
No matter how much money is on that, they will at a certain point, they will dig up the funds to, to deal with it, to get rid of you.
Yep.
Right on. All right, let's move right along. We'll see if this is something that Lincoln Riley can build on going forward, and we'll see if Jaden Maiava can figure out if either they find a new QB or Jaden Maiava figures out how to not throw 6 or 8 turnover-worthy balls a game.
Yeah. And I'm going to be keeping an eye on Miller Moss if he blows up in Louisville. So,
and he's gonna.
Oh, yeah.
You just know he's gonna, because he's better than Tyler Shuck.
Yeah.
He's got a better arm than Tyler Shuck.
And he's got Jeff Brom as a head coach.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have the Pinstripe Bowl with the now 7-6 Nebraska Cornhuskers 20.
Whoa.
The 7-6 Boston College Eagles 15. This is another bowl game we were wrong about, John. And I'm not going to lie. I was disgusted watching BC try to do anything on offense.
It was bad.
Like, Nebraska did a good job on defense, but BC looked as inept and unprepared to play a game offensively as I've seen like anyone look ever.
Yeah.
That said, credit to Matt Rule. He realized early this was going to be a rock fight, and he made sure to maintain the upper hand. The Cornhuskers led 7-0, 13-2 at the half, and they led 20-2 in the fourth quarter when BC made a frenzied comeback and almost stole it from them. But the Cornhuskers were cool under pressure. When they gave up a safety, they made sure not to get a defensive stop and not to have 2 points turn into 9. They made BC uncomfortable on offense throughout the game, and they couldn't get much going until it was too late. Also credit the Cornhuskers for closing late. They were up just 20-15 when they got the ball back with 4 minutes left in the game. Nebraska successfully drove the ball until the game ended. That is a great 4-minute drill. The Cornhuskers moved the ball 45 yards in 9 plays to close the game out. They completed an opening pass, but then ran the ball the rest of the time. With just 2 minutes left in the game, it was 4th and 3 from the BC 35. Nebraska's Matt Rule could have kicked a field goal, or punted, either one of which would have given BC a chance to seal the game. But instead, he went for it and ran the ball for 11 yards and the game-winning first down. That is believing in your guys to win the line of scrimmage when you got to win it. I love that call. Love that Nebraska was able to finish and thus secure their first winning season in 8 years. QB Dylan Raiola was elite, man. 22 for 30, 224 yards, 7.5 yards per attempt, 1 TD, 1 pick. So that wasn't great, but he showed a lot of growth this year. There's no question about it. It was a pretty strong finish against somewhat questionable defense. Running backs, Emmett Johnson, Ramir Johnson, combined for 134 yards and well over 5 yards per rush. They controlled the line of scrimmage when they needed to in this game. Wide receiver Jamal Banks had a great day with 4 catches for 79 yards, and tight end Thomas Fidone had 5 grabs for 50 yards in his last game as a Cornhusker. Fidone's in the transfer portal. Reportedly, he didn't like how many reps he was getting late in the season under Holgorsen. So Fidone is going to take his talents elsewhere. Cornhusker linebacker Vincent Shavers had 6 tackles, including a sack and 2 TFLs. So nice day for him. For BC, man, QB Grayson James, just 26 of 41, 300 yards, 1 yard, 7.3 yards per attempt, but no TDs. And he led Boston College with just 22 yards rushing. BC lost the battle decisively on the line of scrimmage to Nebraska. So John and Lewis Bond did have 7 grabs for 99 yards. So good for him. John, what'd you think about this?
Well, first off, I've been seeing a couple conflicting things with Fidone. Is that confirmed that he is? And then I've heard he's not now.
He's not now. He might pull out.
I don't.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything official.
Yeah, the last I saw, he was going in the portal, but I could be wrong.
I saw something earlier today that said now he's reconsidering. I don't know, man. Who knows? Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
but I think it'd be stupid to let him go.
Well, yeah, he's a good player.
But yeah. But as far as Nebraska, though, yeah, solid. They did exactly what they should. They knew they were going to dominate the line of scrimmage. They figured that out pretty quickly. Yeah. And they were able to get things done, mostly on the ground, I think, or not mostly on the ground, but what I saw on the ground with Johnson and Johnson was pretty impressive. That was good. Both Emmett Johnson and Ramir Johnson had some great runs. I thought that there was a really awesome, the nasty move by Emmett Johnson, which unfortunately ended up in a failed fake field goal. But when he just totally faked out that defender and made him look stupid, and you saw the speed that he has. Yeah. And this is what I know they've been talking about from Cornhusker fans for most of the season, telling us about both of these guys having some real talent. And it was nice to finally see that. And finally to see that offensive line, which, they were going against a much inferior defensive line than what you generally see in the Big Ten, but still, you can see what they were capable of doing. And that was really good to see that running game was finally established and what it can do. So hopefully they can build on that. Raiola, solid, agreed. I think he's grown a lot. I yet to see whether or not he's going to develop into that elite quarterback that, Husker fans have been hoping for, which, but hey, as long as he's
freshman year though, he got better.
Yep.
Not
too bad.
I think he'll be good at the very least. I don't know if we'll see if he becomes great. Maybe he will. He's got, he's only a true freshman.
Yeah, and I think if they can give him a couple more receivers, some weapons to throw to, I think that'll definitely help him out as well. And that's again why I don't get rid of Fidone, man. Come on, keep him.
And he's got Holgo there, man. Holgo, I think pissed off Fidone. He benched him a little bit. Maybe he went back to him and was like, "Hey, man, just so you know, you're the best player. I just had to bench you because you weren't playing well." Maybe he had that conversation. I feel like Dana Holgorsen is honest enough to be like, "Hey, man, you were screwing around, so I benched you. Now I'm not going to bench you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I liked the play calling by Nebraska's new OC. I think that the play calling was good. Yeah. You can see a change, and I think it's moving in a positive direction. They fired their special teams coach, which is great.
I saw that.
Because it was horrible.
It's really bad.
Even in this game, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And then the D-line was just wreaking havoc all day. Boston College just at the line of scrimmage just couldn't hang. And it was very evident right away, right at the beginning. So good on you, Nebraska. Hey, not only did you make a bowl game, but you won your bowl game. That's massive.
Winning season. First time in 8 years.
There you go. You finally did it. be proud, be happy.
Yeah.
And this is a step in the right direction. And I'm not surprised Rule was able to make this happen. So I'm glad.
I had our friend of the pod, Matt Rule Smock, was saying he appreciates our coverage because we don't do the sunshine pumping thing that other media does to give Nebraska like false hope, like unrealistic expectations. Because this was a step forward. This is a good thing for them, from where they've been to here today. But if you were just listening to the national media who was like, they're going to make the college football playoff, then you would be disappointed. But as a Husker fan, I don't think you should be. I think you should say, did you want to do better? Could you have won another game or two? Sure. But the program is moving in the right direction in year 2 under Matt Rule.
And for those the Husker fans out there, the few that I've ran into that are reasonable. Sorry, but it's the reality. Love you guys, but there's some loud ones out there that are pretty crazy. But the ones that I think the people in general, I think fans in general who can come at their programs from a realistic point of view, which is hard. I get it. It actually is. It's tough.
Yeah.
But when you can see and recognize you've been in a new conference, this is harder than you thought it was going to be. You had a major setback with some poor hires. But now you have somebody that you can build something off of. And it may take a while. It's not going to be an overnight success. And you know what? You may never become a national title winning program ever again. But can you be happy and satisfied with a winning season after winning season and having solid play and being competitive in the best premier conference in the league? That's amazing. That's an accomplishment.
and in the right year, make a run and make the college football playoff.
Yes, exactly.
And have a chance to, in the right year, when the schedule lines up, when you have the right depth, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So good for the Huskers. Great. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where Matt Rule goes in year 3. I know year 3 is historically when his teams really take off. So it'll be interesting to see if we see a big step forward next year.
Well, I think at this point, it's national title or bust. So that's what I'm going to go.
It's not the offseason yet, John.
No? No, you're right. Sorry. I'll pull it back. I can pull it back. That's a little preview. All right?
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have the Music City Bowl and the Tennessee. This was the lone Big Ten loss to the SEC head-to-head. The 10-3 Missouri Tigers, 27. The 8-5 Iowa Hawkeyes, 24. Iowa really missed superstar running back Caleb Johnson late in this game. That said, they played really well early in this game. Iowa jetted out to a 21-14 halftime lead behind a combination of running, some passing, and a timely 100-yard kickoff return courtesy of Caden Wetjen. The offense faltered in the second half, though. They went punt, field goal after stalling inside the 10 with 1st and goal. Interception, punt, turnover on downs, end of game. That turnover on downs cost the Hawkeyes a chance to win the game. Driving on the Mizzou 46 on 4th and 1, Iowa was stopped for no gain. A line of scrimmage team like Iowa lost the line of scrimmage on the key 4th down play to lose the game. It shows you that Iowa never got to where they wanted to be this year. They were expected to be a college football playoff contender, and yet they finished just 8-5. So I think it's really a disappointing season for their fans. For Mizzou, though, QB Brady Cook finished 18 for 32, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks for a QBR of 86.5. Brady Cook was great, and he ends a fantastic college career with a 2nd consecutive 10-win season. They won 11 last year. So that's a big deal at a school like Missouri, so good for him. Mizzou also, they couldn't run the ball in this game against that stout Iowa D line. Brady Cook led them in rushing with just 54 yards. And they only had 2.7 yards per rush and under 100 yards rushing. So the Iowa front did its job, but the secondary continued to be leaky as it has been all year. Wide receiver Marquise Johnson had 7 grabs for 122 yards and a touchdown, while Theo Weiss had 5 for 75 and a TD. And that was all in the first half because he got hurt and missed the second half. Shout out to senior Mizzou DN Johnny Walker, who had 4 tackles, including 2 sacks in this game. Dude was a menace and made Iowa QB Brendan Sullivan's day miserable. And Iowa QB Brendan Sullivan was 14 for 18, 131 yards, 7.3 yards per attempt, 1 TD and 1 pick for a QBR of just 43.4. But running back Kamari Moulton was great with 96 yards and just 14 attempts, 6.9 yards per rush and a TD. And Jazz Patterson chipped in 74 yards and 8.2 yards per rush. So the Iowa run game was still pretty good without Caleb Johnson. It just wasn't electric the same way. And it wasn't enough to ice the game late. None of the Iowa receivers caught more than 3 balls for 30 yards. So once again, Iowa's below average passing attack isn't scaring anybody. And what happened to tight end Luke Lachey, man? That dude used to be terrifying. In this game, he had 1 catch for 4 yards. Is he hurt? Has he lost a step? Like, why isn't he a bigger factor in your offense, Kirk Ferentz? That's what I want to know. Because he was a couple of years ago, that guy was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I had kind of forgotten he was still on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. John, what'd you think about this one?
Well, this to me shows like of not. I just think Kirk Ferentz has lost a step. I really think this is all coming down to of we're seeing the slow, inevitable downfall of Kirk Ferentz. I shouldn't say downfall in a way like, he's gonna, his whole legacy is going to be tarnished and he's a terrible coach, blah, 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 blah. No. I think he's done, man. Like you're seeing
things. So?
I don't know. I think he's on his way out, man. I could be proven wrong because it is Kirk Ferentz and I could be, I could be eating my words, this time next year, but, which is very possible. But I think to me, it just seems like things are happening in ways with this team that I've never seen before. And it may seem small and minute to most people that don't pay attention, but Iowa's secondary just was not as good this year.
No.
And you saw it in this game.
No,
saw it in this game that secondary was just not as good. It was not as solid. It was not as disciplined. And that is weird. And also their D-line was not getting a lot of pressure on Cook either. It was just not having the effect that I were used to seeing. Now the run blocking was good. I think, you saw Kamari Moulton and Jazz Patterson, break off some good runs and look pretty solid out there. It's just, I don't know, man. There's just everything seems to be just slowly kind of like crumbling down, in my opinion. And to me, it's just, I don't know how much more Kirk Ferentz has left in him. Now, an 8-5 season is still solid. That's a solid season, but with the expectations, with that schedule that they had this year, it should have at least been 9 to 10 wins. But
yeah, I mean, for them to end up at 8-5 with that schedule is a disappointment. It feels like a failure. Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Just something feels
especially
weird.
with Caleb Johnson at running back.
Yes.
Like how often do you have a generational player at running back?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Something just feels off. Something feels, and you hear it. I can see it a lot more in the fan base, like on Twitter and everything like that. You can see a lot of fans.
They don't talk a lot of trash like they used to.
No, well, and they also don't they're not like trashing Kirk Ferentz, but there's definitely a lot of people that you get the feeling of like, okay, buddy, like, thank you for your service, but maybe it's time we move on and get someone younger and newer and whatever and continue our winning ways at Iowa. But we'll see, man. I don't know. I just didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel good about this game. I don't feel good about where Iowa's at. I don't feel like it's going to get better next year.
Yeah. What worries me is that it's been so bad in the passing game for so long.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's been several, it's been the better part of a decade now.
Yeah.
And before that, Iowa almost always had competent QB play, and they usually had a decent, not a great, but they usually had a decent enough passing attack. Yeah. They usually had at least one receiver who was worth something, and they always had like 2 or 3 tight ends who were terrifying. And I just don't see that now. I don't see the guys who scare me coming up. I don't know who's going to play quarterback. I did see, I don't think Brendan Sullivan's it, man.
No.
I just don't think he's ever going to be it. So when Kirk Ferentz doesn't have a generational running back to hand the ball off to, it's not great. It's not great. So did you see that South Dakota's superstar 2-time national championship quarterback Mark Gronowski is visiting Iowa City. And that's for his dude. I don't know. If I was Mr. Gronowski, I would pick a safer transfer destination.
Well, that's why you've seen other bigger name quarterbacks, Bo Perbula, Miller Moss, like talk about making stops at Iowa. There's a reason that they aren't picking Iowa. And Iowa, I'm sure, is willing to pay them an exorbitant amount of money.
Well, they paid Cade a bunch.
Yeah. So like,
but look what happened to Cade.
That's the other thing. Is
that guy won the Big Ten at Michigan. He won the Big Ten, and at Iowa, it was terrible. I mean, it was he was almost like unwatchable.
And that's what's so like it makes you can understand why quarterbacks might be nervous or scared to go there. Like, and it's not even just the quarterback. Like, we've talked about this before too. The fact that they recruit receivers at a MAC level that's very concerning.
The development is terrible. I mean, think when they had a good receiver a couple of years ago, and or a couple of good receivers a couple of years ago, and they both had to go to Purdue.
Yeah,
Tracy and the white boy, I can't remember his name, but the point is they both had to go to Purdue to like have careers.
Yep.
And I think Tracy's in the NFL now.
Yep.
And you had that on your roster and you couldn't get him the ball. And the other guy put up like video game stats at Purdue.
Yeah. And they went to Purdue over Iowa.
Yeah, they left Iowa to be rehabbed by Jeff Brom at Purdue.
And that's not the Iowa you and I grew up watching.
No, it wasn't. I mean, they used to always have a guy like I always think of Marvin McNutt.
Yes.
Because they always had one guy like that.
Yep.
And now they don't have anybody. I mean, they don't have anybody like that, and they don't scare you. And it's like, yeah, it came together for them this year because they had a generational running back and a favorable schedule, but they had all that and they still only went 8-5.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what scares me about where Kirk's at. So I do think like it's a pivotal year for him next year. If he slips and wins 6 or 7 games, the knives will be out and the chorus of it's time for him to retire will only get louder.
Yeah.
So like, I think he better go win 9 games next year.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or else I think there's going to be a lot of hate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. I haven't believed it because he's been so successful, but dude, that fan base is slowly turning on him.
Well, and I think those of us like you and I who've grown up watching this guy coach for decades at this point,
25 years,
we notice the cracks more than others do generally. And I know obviously Iowa fans, I'm sure you're far more knowledgeable and you probably see other things that maybe we don't, maybe we're missing something, but Minnesota fans have watched Kirk Ferentz and know Kirk Ferentz very, very, very well.
Yeah.
And for you and I think to see some of this stuff happening in places that it just never does. You know, this man is the epitome of consistency in certain areas on the field. And when you're seeing things just not quite line up, it makes you wonder.
The DB thing worries me the most.
Yeah.
Because that's just never happened.
Exactly.
Ever.
Yeah.
They are ever.
Yep. That's where I'm like, my eyebrows are raised a little bit. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm proven wrong.
It's going to be a big year next year.
Yeah.
Going to be really interesting to see who they end up with at quarterback.
Yep.
Because Gronowski, man, like he's a good player, but he's a system player. He's not very mobile. He's the kind of guy who I could go to Iowa and really regret it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I think both sides could regret it. Like if I'm Iowa, I'm Kirk Ferentz, I think you need a guy who's a little more of a dual threat at this point because you don't have the wide receivers to throw to. So you need the running game to be a little more intimidating.
Yep. Agreed.
But Kirk Ferentz doesn't like those kind of quarterbacks. He had one in Brad Banks. He won a Big Ten title and then he never recruited another one ever again.
He just wants a statue, man. He loves his statues.
It's interesting. All right, next up, we had a particularly embarrassing game for the SEC. This was the ReliaQuest Bowl, in which the now 8-5 Michigan Wolverines defeated the now 9-4 Alabama Crimson Tide, 19-13. John, remember when we previewed this game and we said the funniest possible outcome would be for Michigan to win, thus embarrassing all the ESPN pundits who shamelessly lobbied for mighty Alabama to make the playoff despite 3 conference losses. We said that if Michigan won this game, the SEC would have egg all over its face.
Mm-hmm.
Well, order some omelets because Alabama face planted yet again on the national stage for the second year in a row. Michigan, a team who has played this entire year without a competent quarterback, managed to grind out a win against Alabama based off of moxie and a D-line that just continues to dominate no matter who's playing for it. The game was 16-0 Michigan before Alabama could figure out what had happened. Michigan in the first half went field goal, touchdown, field goal, 3 punts to end the half. Alabama was turning the ball over. They couldn't move the ball. The special teams were questionable. It was all shaky for Alabama. But by that time the damage was done, Michigan was up 16-10 at half. Alabama came back. But I'm not going to lie, John. I had a feeling it wasn't going to last. Mm-hmm. I thought surely superstar head coach Kalen DeBoer, he'll find a way to get star QB Jalen Milroe going in the passing game, even if the running game isn't working against Michigan's front. Surely DeBoer and that mighty Bama roster will figure out a way to win this game. But nope, I was flat out wrong. Second half featured a ton of punts, 1 field goal for each team. Even when Alabama had great field position at the 50-yard line after a Zabian Brown interception, they could not capitalize. This Michigan D was just too stingy. And that was even without Grant and Graham playing. Mm-hmm. Michigan offense wasn't much. Davis Warren, 9 of 12, 73 yards and a touchdown. The rushing game only put up 115 yards, with running back Jordan Marshall grinding out 100 yards and 23 carries. So Michigan did almost nothing on offense, but the Michigan D would not be denied. DN Derek Moore had 4 tackles, including 2 sacks, so he was a force all day. And even without their star DTs, Michigan was the stronger, more physical, more powerful team in the trenches. It was impressive what that D-line did all day long. Michigan DB Wesley Walker had 6 tackles, a TFL, and an interception, so monster day for him. And Alabama QB Jalen Milroe completed just half his passes, going 16 for 32, 192 yards, a pedestrian 6 yards per attempt, 1 TD, 1 pick, for a terrible QBR of just 26.5. Woof. Bama ended the game with just 68 yards rushing. The mighty Bama running attack, handcuffed by the Wolverines. Wide receiver Jeremy Bernard had 4 catches for 80 yards, but nobody else did anything. Jalen Milroe was also forced into 2 fumbles, both of which Alabama lost and which led to points for Michigan. John, what'd you think about this one?
Dude, this was embarrassing.
It was. It was embarrassing.
So embarrassing. I don't even know, like, I mean, Jalen Milroe, who was a Heisman, like,
contender,
pretender, I guess. Yeah.
Pretender, yeah. A Heisman pretender. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, he was a Heisman pretender.
Looked ridiculous. Like, I mean, this was a joke. This looked like it was like a 3rd string quarterback.
He looked like he'd never played before.
Yeah. I've never seen this. And
he's like 3rd-year starter.
And now he's declaring for the NFL draft?
John, should I declare for the NFL draft?
I think so.
Do you think I could get drafted?
If Jalen Milroe's got a shot, you got a shot. Yeah.
I used to play corner. I can still probably run a,
Dude, he made Davis Warren look amazing by comparison on that field, like, which is crazy.
Davis Warren passed for 73 yards.
Yeah, it was amazing. So look, man, it was an embarrassing thing. Alabama should be absolutely humiliated. They should be really upset. I think it's amazing. I love it. I hope the fans are just continuously crying all off season. And ESPN and Paul Feinbaum and all of them. It's justice. This is what we wanted. And I hate Michigan. I hate Michigan.
But but my God, I was cheering. I was singing "Hail to the Victors."
Yep.
I was doing it all.
Yep. You stole a win from us this year, but you know what? Good for you. I'm happy you did this. I am.
Oh, and man.
It wasn't funny. It was funny, but it wasn't for lack of a little bit of trying, though. Like in that second half, like with Alex Orji out there, like making you terrified that somehow he was going to lose the game for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. That defense came to play, and they ensured that nothing bad was going to happen, and they were able to run the ball well enough. And Jordan Marshall was fine. And they were able to play their game, and Alabama just looked like a freaking joke out there. Minnesota, Illinois. I think even Rutgers could have beaten this Alabama team on that day.
Can you imagine what would have happened to them in the playoff?
Oh, dude, they would have been.
They would have gotten run off the field
by everybody.
by almost anybody.
Yeah.
Not like SMU or Boise, but like most of the teams, like most
Arizona State would have beaten the crap out of this team.
Oh, whipped them. Cam Scatterbo would have gone bananas.
Yes.
Alabama. I mean, the fact that they were pushing for this team, and man, how far is Alabama? They won the SEC last year. How far have they fallen in a year?
It's amazing. It is great. I am so happy.
Yeah, I am. It was the single funniest thing that could have happened in bowl season.
Yep.
Was Alabama losing to this Michigan team, the worst Michigan team in 15 years.
Yep.
And they did it. They did it. Even after they watched Ohio State show them how to do it, they did it again anyway.
It's incredible.
And I just, oh man, it was so good. And just like watching, I can't wait to see somebody ask Nick Saban about it.
Yeah. Well, and now the best thing is, with all of this, and of course, the SEC for sure is never going to go to nine conference games now.
Oh, they're never going to 9 conference games.
In fact, they'll probably
they might go to 7.
Yeah, they'll go to 7 conference games and line up 3 FCS schools, like and maybe 1 D2 school just to be safe on their schedule coming up.
Yeah, it's just too funny. It's too funny that it all went down this way.
Oh yeah, I love it.
We got to talk about one thing though before we move on from this game.
Sure.
WTF was this Michigan offense? It's been beyond abysmal this year. It's a miracle they won 8 games. They need better play on the O-line, at wide receiver, and most importantly at QB, and they have to replace Colston Loveland at tight end as he's off to the NFL. Yeah. You don't get to have down years at Michigan, and Sharon Moore just had a down year. Worse, he had a down year coming off a national title. So that's rough. He absolutely needs to nail the QB and wide receiver for next year, or else he's going to find himself on the hot seat sooner than later. Michigan fans are going to expect him to do a lot better than 8-5 in season 2.
Yep.
That said, he beat Ohio State, so he gets a reprieve until next fall. So yeah, the Michigan fans, they're all ready to be mad at him, but they can't be that mad.
Yep.
Because he beat somehow this Ohio State team, I think mostly because Ryan Day has an ego problem. But it happened.
Yep. Well, and who knows? Maybe he still might put Ryan Day on the hot seat. If Ryan Day doesn't win a national title, that could be it. So,
dude, if Ryan Day doesn't win the Michigan game next year, I don't even. What are we even gonna do?
I don't even know.
I don't know. I think the whole world might slip into a apocalyptic state. I don't know, man. When the dam breaks, I think Ohio State, I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know if it's next year, but when Ohio State wins that game again, I don't think it's going to be close. I think they're going to win by 50.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was going to be this year. But
I thought that was going to be this year, but maybe it's next year.
Ugh.
They'll still have Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. All right, should we move on to another embarrassing game for the SEC?
Yes.
The Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, where the number 20, now 10-3 Illinois Illini defeated the 9-4 number 15 South Carolina Gamecocks 21-17. This was a knockdown, drag out dogfight of a game. It was a slobber knocker. Both teams played stout D, took big swings at one another. It was a fantastic game to watch, despite the fact that Illinois led just 7-3 at half. South Carolina scored in the third quarter, take a 10-7 lead, and it got nuttier from there. Illinois mounted a 9-play, 63-yard, 4.5-minute drive to retake the lead 14-10. But on the ensuing drive, South Carolina went 12 plays, 75 yards over 7.5 minutes. Illinois went 12 plays, 75 yards over 7.5 over 7:27 in the magnum opus Brett Bielema drive of the night to reclaim the lead 21-17. The drive included 3 separate third down conversions, including a 9-yard Josh McCray TD run on 3rd and 3. When Illinois needed yards up front, it got the yards they needed, but only just barely. South Carolina turned the ball over on downs, and then Illinois ran the ball 7 straight times to end the game, including an emphatic 60-yard Aiden Lafferty run on 3rd and short. that broke South Carolina for good. Illinois QB Luke Altmaier was solid, if unspectacular, 13 for 22, 174 yards, almost 8 yards per attempt, 1 TD and 1 pick. He played fine. He didn't play amazing. They didn't need him to play amazing to beat the mighty Gamecocks. And Josh McCray had a nice day running the ball, 114 yards on nearly 9 yards per rush, 2 TDs. Lafferty chipped in 67, including this emphatic 60-yard game ender. It wasn't star Zachary Franklin at receiver who led the Illini. He had just 4 for 39 yards and a TD. However, junior Hank Beatty had the game of his life with 4 catches for 90 yards. But again, this game was about the defense and the running game. Illinois didn't even try to throw the ball all that much. Linebacker Gabe Jackas had 8 tackles, including 3 TFLs, so nice day for him. For South Carolina, QB Lenora Sellers was okay, but not great, going 24 for 34, 260 yards, 1 TD, and 0 picks. But South Carolina flat out could not run the ball against this stout Illini D. Their leading rusher managed just 69 yards, and the Cox only had 130 for the game. Tight end Joshua Simon led South Carolina with 6 catches for 69 yards and a TD. But once again, they didn't do much offensively, managing just 17 points against Illinois. John, what did you think about this one from this face plant from another SEC playoff contender?
Well, first of all, Illinois first 10 win season since what, like
2001.
So, and
23 years, man.
And we got to take a victory lap on again saying that Brett Bielema is an amazing hire for the Fighting Illini, and he was going to do stuff like this. Not a surprise. He did it. And it's probably likely to happen again at some point.
Dude, they have Altmaier back next year. They have everybody back just about. Yeah. They should be, if Illinois isn't a top 15 team going into next year, and I don't know if I hate preseason rankings. I'm not saying I want anybody in the top 15, but if you have to have them, they deserve to be there.
Yes, they do. But will they? Probably
they're going to end this year ranked in the top 15 after beating South Carolina. And they won 10 games. They bring a lot back, including their quarterback. They absolutely should be ranked that high to enter next year based on the rules that apply to everybody else.
How much you want to bet, though, they'll be ranked at like 21 or 22?
Oh, yeah. They'll be at 24, the Illinois Illini, right behind Coastal Carolina.
Yep.
Like what?
Yep. So, yeah. With the game, though, look, what won this game, in my opinion, it was all psychological warfare. And Brett Bielema mind effed Beamer so bad.
Oh,
and
dude.
And after that whole thing with the substitution taunting thing that he was doing, like, that was game over. Beamer lost his cool. The team, to me, just never got it back together. Like the Gamecocks, it was just all kind of weird things kept happening. Disarray.
So for those of you who didn't see the game, essentially, Bielema waited for Beamer to substitute, and then he told his guys to substitute slowly. So they'd come running in, but like they kind of came jogging in, and he did it the whole game, and that's legal. Amazing. It's legal. And like Shane Beamer's whole thing is like up-tempo offense, click, click, click. And it's like, you know what, dude? Why are you so mad? Did you not scout Illinois? Did you not know they were going to do that? They've been doing it all year.
Yeah.
Didn't start doing it in this game. So like, who on your team dropped the ball scouting? Because he lost his actual mind.
Oh, he did. It was amazing.
I mean, and Bielema, dude, the smirk on Bielema's face.
It was so great.
I haven't seen a smirk on his face since our DB fell down on 4th and 15.
Yep.
I haven't seen a smirk that size on his face. I mean, it was he escaped when he knew he shouldn't have and all that. Yeah, dude. Shane Beamer lost his mind. He was screaming, he was pushing, they were holding him back on the sideline. Yeah. It was and Bielema was just sitting there with just the biggest grin on his face. Like he loved, dude. It was over. It was over for Beamer at that point. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
he KO'd him.
This is a game of psychological warfare, and Brett Bielema, you don't engage in that with him. You can't because you will lose every time.
No, it's not worth it.
And he got him hook, line, and sinker, and you knew it.
He used to tie up Tim Brewster in knots before games, and I just like. Oh, it's terrible. Or even Jerry Kill. Dude, that's why I like that PJ Fleck was like, I'm going to befriend Bielema.
Yep.
And then when I beat him, it will be less. He won't even be that mean to me. And he's
and
not. And they aren't.
They're actually very respectful of each other.
They're actually
nice
really not. They actually, I know, it's so funny.
But it's
Bielema didn't even seem that mad when we beat him this year.
No, he wasn't. He was like, I mean, I don't think he was happy, but he wasn't even.
No, of course not. But like, I expected him to lose, like blow a gasket, but he didn't at all.
Nope.
Yeah.
So I think to me with this game, it was really that, man. I mean, look, to be fair, yes. Like I think Illinois outplayed South Carolina. I think that their running game was superior. Obviously, Altmaier was able to do enough to keep it going. Their pass game, and their defense was stout. I mean, that's really what it came down to. It was just solid play across the board when it came to Illinois, and the Gamecocks just weren't able to do that, and not being able to establish the run against Illinois is and making as good as Sellers is, making him have to beat you alone is just not enough. He's young. He's a true freshman.
And he looked like a freshman against.
And he did.
Yeah.
So you can't rely on that. So, Illinois did exactly what they should. They were the more talented team. They outplayed them. Bielema out-schemed them. But I do think the factor that really just like tipped the scales were the mind games, and Bielema is a master, and he just absolutely destroyed Bielema.
Well, South Carolina, they couldn't get any momentum.
Yep, it was gone.
They thrive with Lenora Sellers. They thrive on like getting lined up, snapping the ball really fast.
Yeah,
and Bielema every time he just sent them out so slow, and like you could see Beamer getting more and more annoyed. You see South Carolina being like, "Oh, this is like taking a long time."
Yeah,
and it was great. It was no notes. Brett Bielema.
Yep, good work.
Good job.
Great season.
And again, another SEC playoff contender that wasn't actually a contender after all. That was a pretender completely.
Yep.
And was proven so on the field.
Yep.
With all their best players playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, where the 9-4 Louisville Cardinals 35, the 6-7 Washington Huskies 34. The end of this game was high drama. Washington rallied late with scores on its final two possessions in the fourth quarter, including a 1-yard fade route to Giles Jackson to bring Washington within a point with 9 seconds remaining. But head coach Jed Fish didn't want to go to overtime, John. He wanted to win the game, and he went for 2. And on the 2-point conversion attempt, Damon Williams' pass was knocked down in the end zone by linebacker Antonio Watts, but it was a gutsy call. Washington was with Louisville every step of the way. It was tied 21 at half. Louisville went up 35-21 after a fast start to the second half, but Washington answered with great defense and 2 TD drives to end the game. Louisville QB Harrison Bailey completed 16 of 25 for 164 yards, just 6.6 yards per attempt, 3 TDs and 0 picks. The 0 picks was the key stat, as even one would have likely lost the game. Louisville had success running the ball for over 200 yards. Isaac Brown had 99 on 5.5 yards per rush, and Duke Watson had 83 on 8.3 yards per rush. So the running game was really effective at times for Louisville. Without its starting QB, the passing game was not as fruitful for Louisville. Their leading receiver had just 60 yards and 6 catches. Washington QB Damon Williams was 26 for 42 for a whopping 374 yards, John. 11.7 yards per attempt, 4 TDs, 1 pick. Mm-hmm. Williams showed me in this game that he has the stuff to be a really solid Big Ten QB. I will be really excited to see him next year with an entire offense that's built around his skill set. We saw a glimpse of that in this bowl game. I think Damon Williams could be a really fun player the next few years.
Yeah.
So I think, he's a good find for Jed Fish. Washington's Achilles heel in this game, though, is that they couldn't run the ball with just 98 yards and 2.7 yards per rush. But the star wide receivers led the way as Giles Jackson had 11 catches for 161 yards, and count them, 4 touchdowns. Wow. Yowza. That's an amazing performance. Wide receiver Jeremiah Hunter added 78 yards on 3 catches. John, what'd you think of this game?
Yeah, Washington, we all knew Washington was going to struggle this year. Yes. And they did, and in the ways that we expected them to. The fact that they made a bowl game is impressive. The fact that they played as well as they did against a very good coach at Jeff Brom is also impressive.
They almost beat Big Game Brom.
They did. And I know you mentioned it in our group chat, but I agree with you. I think the going for 2 was the right move. I know it's disappointing. I know it didn't work out, but I appreciate and respect a head coach that goes for the win, especially in those kinds of situations. I think I would have been more disappointed, because knowing Jeff Brom, he would have had something schemed up to probably come out and win in overtime, and that's just too much of a risk, I think. And so taking that shot, man, you had momentum going for you, and I think that was the right move. It didn't work out, but I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. I think you have a great quarterback of the future. Damon Williams is fantastic. I think he can throw the ball, he can run, he's fast. He's going to be a problem, and he's only going to develop further. And I think he's going to be
quick.
Good. You've got some great. Oh yeah, you've got some great receivers. Like, I think Washington, again, and we talked about this, how like they kind of go up and down, but they have a high ceiling in Washington, and I think that they'll continue to trend upwards from here on out. So it was a good game, man. It was I wasn't expecting it to be this close. It was a good game. Nothing to be too disappointed. I know it was only 6 wins after reaching the national title game last year, but having happened what happened to that program, this is not crazy. So I think there's a lot to move forward with. I think Jedd Fisch is a good fit from what I can tell, and I think it's just going to get better next season.
Yeah, man, he almost beat Big Game Brom.
Yeah.
I mean, he showed us the kind of team Washington could be next year with Damon Williams leading the way. It's going to be an exciting offense. Defense is a work in progress, but hopefully with new DC and former Purdue head coach Ryan Walters, they can get back. They can improve a little bit defensively going into next year. It'll be interesting. Ryan Walters historically likes to play a lot of man coverage. I don't think Washington has the personnel right now to play the way Ryan Walters wants to play. So it'll be really interesting to see what they try to do next year.
Yeah.
Because he would love to play one high safety, stop the run, and say, F you, we want to play man up on the outside. But you have to have certain kind of players to play like that.
But they can get there.
They can get there. No, sure, through recruiting and stuff. But I don't know if they're going to be there next year.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting to see what kind of hybrid defense he runs next year, because he's not going to be able to do what he did at Illinois.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what he tried and failed to do at Purdue.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I was going to say one more thing. I can't remember. Oh, yeah. Here's what I feel like about going for 2, just so everyone knows. If you are the better team, kick the extra point, go to overtime. If you're the better team, but if you're not the better team, if the other team is more talented than you are, then go for 2 because you can end it on one play. So I think Louisville was the better team. I think I think Jedd Fisch made the right decision to go for 2. Yeah. So I give him credit for that. Just because it didn't work out doesn't mean it was the wrong decision.
Agreed.
All right. We have one more bowl game. It was the last Big Ten game of bowl season, the penultimate game of the bowl season, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, in which the now 8-5 Minnesota Golden Gophers defeated the now 6-7 Virginia Tech Hokies 24-10. John, this was a tale of the first quarter versus the rest of the game. In the first quarter, Virginia Tech looked good. They jumped out to a 7-0 lead, and courtesy of some Minnesota drops, they were able to keep the Gopher offense in check. But starting in that drive that ended the first quarter into the second quarter, the tide turned. Minnesota scored 3 TDs on 3 possessions in the second quarter to take control of the game. Virginia Tech did hit an impressive 60-yard field goal as time expired in the second quarter, but that only cut the lead to 21-10. Virginia Tech would not score again as Minnesota got very conservative with the lead and went on to win the game 24-10. Minnesota scored 1 second half field goal, but focused on running the ball and running the clock in the last half of the season. Virginia Tech had 2 chances to score late, but Minnesota held each time. They forced an incomplete pass on 4th and 7 from the Minnesota 17 to keep Virginia Tech off the scoreboard on a really nice play by Kerry Brown. Then after turning the ball over in their own end of the field, Minnesota forced a 4th down interception by cornerback Zaquan Bryan. The Gophers then went on an 8-play drive to seal the game. The play that got them to the victory formation was a 4th and 1 fake QB sneak throw to a tight end who was well covered, but managed to catch the ball anyway. Minnesota won the 50-50 contest in this game consistently. Minnesota QB Max Brosner It wasn't his best game, but he finished a solid 18 for 29, 211 yards, 7.3 yards per attempt, 1 TD, and 1 uncharacteristic late interception, a QBR of 75.9. So Brosmer finished a really solid season for Minnesota and had the best passing season for a Gopher QB since Tanner Morgan in 2019. Mm-hmm. Running back Darius Taylor was dominant with 113 yards on about 6 yards per rush and 1 impressive 28-yard TD in which he showed crazy speed, cutting to the sideline, turning up the field. Darius was fast in this game. He's always fast, but healthy Darius is really fast.
Yep.
And Mayo Bowl MVP wide receiver Elijah Spencer had 6 catches for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. Did a fantastic job in his one and only game as wide receiver 1 for the Golden Gophers. I am really proud of what Elijah accomplished this year.
Yeah.
He had a rough year in 2023. He could have packed it in. He could have gone somewhere else, but he didn't. He hung around and had a great senior year and was capped with a fantastic MVP-worthy performance in the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty exciting for Elijah Spencer. I'm really happy for him. Linebacker Devin Williams, 6 tackles, including a half sack and 1.5 tackles for loss. So good day for him as well. For Virginia Tech, Pop Watson was just 8 for 12 for 81 yards and a TD, while Colin Schlee was 2 for 6 for 68 yards. Virginia Tech couldn't run the ball, so they managed just 74 yards on 2.5 yards per rush. Minnesota shut the Tech running game down, and the passing game just wasn't great. Wide receiver Aiden Green, however, had a great day with 6 catches for 115 yards. Nobody else did much of anything. John, what'd you think about this one?
Well, this was a pretty convincing win. It frankly, it could have been up by a couple more scores, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, they left points on the board. They got PJ got PJ conservative.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
But like I really, I liked what Brosmer did. I'm happy. I'm really grateful what he did here. I really, it was nice to see Drake Lindsey get in there, and I know he just threw, he won the 15-yard pass, and it looked great, So I think we found our quarterback of the future, Darius Taylor, with a touchdown pass. So Drake Lindsey, love that play, but I'm sorry, Darius Taylor, he is the QB of the future. Touchdown pass, which I called would happen. So
you spoke
it
into existence. I put you on the spot. I didn't tell you I was going to do it. I put John on the spot, people. And I said, PJ Fleck pulls out a couple trick plays every bowl game. What's it going to be? And John said, halfback pass by Darius Taylor. And not only did they run it, but it worked. Yeah. And Elijah Spencer high pointed the F out of that ball. Yep. I mean, he jumped over like 2 defenders to go get that ball, which, Darius did what running backs do. He's not going to pinpoint it. He hung it up there. He was like, hey, go get it. And Elijah did.
Yep.
And that was kind of the play of the game, honestly.
I can't believe what I saw when it happened. I was jumping and like screaming in my living room because I was like, I called it. I said a touchdown pass by Darius Taylor, and it freaking happened.
Dude, me too. I went right to our group chat and was like, John said this was going to happen.
I need to make predictions every game is what I need to do.
Yeah, you do. It was awesome. It's great.
No, it was great, man. It was really good to see this. It was fun. It was a great ending to the season. There's probably a couple wins that we should have won, or should have had over the season, but it was fun, man. This was a fun season. I have a lot of optimism for next year. I think there's a lot of young talent that we got to see come out there and that were featured. And you saw Zaquan Bryan, you saw Nuke Hayes make some great plays. You saw some people do some good things, So I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Lemecky's still around, man. He's got another year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So he's done nothing but get better every year.
Yep. And it was great to see Mangum out there do his thing. I wanted to see him get more touches this last season, but hey, man, he went out on a high note and he looked great. And so I think there's a lot to look forward to, man. I really do. I think the Gophers look great. They're in a great position, and next season should be fun, man. I really think so. And Virginia Tech, I know they were pretty depleted, but
so were we, though.
We were too.
We were down 7 starters.
Yeah.
And they were it was Justin Wally, it was Daniel Jackson, it was Jaw Joyner, it was Ariante Ursary, who's about to be a first-round draft pick.
Yep.
They were down 2 offensive linemen. Like we were down a lot of guys.
Yeah.
So to come out and dominate that way was fun.
Oh,
and that's what this was. This was a really fun game for Minnesota fans. And it was kind of symbolic of the whole year because the Gophers dominated but fell short of blowing it wide open, which was kind of how this team played all year.
Yep.
You know, it's like they dominated Wisconsin completely.
Yep.
But only won by 3 scores in a game they probably should have won by like 6 scores.
Yep.
You know, but based on how lopsided it was. And that's kind of what this team was. But man, they were this close to greatness. You know, they were 2 or 3 games we absolutely should have won, and just one play in any of those games, we win that game.
Yep.
But it couldn't get there. But it was a lot of fun watching them succeed and fail and try to get there. Yeah. And 8-5 isn't anything to hang a banner over. But considering they went 5-4 in the Big Ten, they accomplished a lot this year. Only 7 teams out of 18 had winning Big Ten conference records.
Yeah.
Minnesota was one of them.
Yep.
And they bounced back from that rough start to the season, you know, and it's, I mean, man, if Dragon missed another kick, man, we'll always have the fact that he was the Big Ten kicker of the year last year, man. But like, he really cost us this year a lot.
Yes, he did.
He cost us multiple wins.
Yep.
You know, as many as 2 or, you know, at least
two. At least
2.
Yeah.
And potentially even more than that. So it was just, yeah, dude, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, but like, this team was so special. And I think it was special because they kind of all, the seniors, I'm not going to just say Brosmer, they kind of all embraced every moment.
Yeah.
You know? And that was the impression I got from this team, is that every game was a big game for them.
Yeah.
And they got up every week. And really the only time we saw any leg at all was against Rutgers. And that was at the end of like 8 games in a row.
Yeah.
And, you know, needing a bye week and all that kind of stuff. So this was a very fun team. It wasn't the best team, but it was close to being a really great team. And I just think this is a fun program, man. And dude, we got to talk about the Mayo, don't we?
We do. Yes.
Briefly.
PJ Fleck taking like a champ.
PJ Fleck is a showman, and he came out with a cap on, right? Like, and everyone would start booing the cap, and then he took the cap off dramatically, which he should have milked the cap a little longer. Like, you can tell he wasn't a theater kid, you know, he should have milked, because like he kind of like took away from the impact of it. Like, he should have sat down and then with the cap on and had them about to do the Mayo and then been like, no, take the cap off. Right.
Yeah.
But these are small notes. The point is, before they did the Mayo dump, they introduced the mascot, and the mascot was a secret celebrity who had been dressed up as the Duke's Mayo mascot the whole time. And it was Flava Flav. And PJ Fleck lost his mind. He was so excited to see Flava Flav. Have you ever seen PJ Fleck was like, oh my God, it's Flava Flav, and he did the yeah boy thing, and all the like PJ Fleck, you could tell his 90s heart, his 80s, 90s heart was just because what's Fleck? Fleck's in his mid 40s. So he was like still around, you know, he still remembers the 80s better than you and I do.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, man, Fleck was so pumped, and he was a showman about it. And unlike every other coward coach who's worn a hat, PJ Fleck did not wear a hat.
Yep.
PJ Fleck said, I'm going to go bald, and he took all the Mayo, and he glorified, he raised his arms up, and it was a great viral moment.
It was amazing. Yep. And that's PJ Fleck.
Awesome.
And
that's
I love
PJ
it.
Fleck. Yeah.
And I love it. And I love
he
it. He
embraces everything. I know you love that.
Yes. And what I love even more about that is how much that pisses off our rivals. It makes me so happy.
Dude, can you see? I couldn't see Jerry Kill taking a Mayo bath.
No.
No.
Or he would have. I think
Glenn
he would have
Mason.
done it, but he would have been so.
No, he would have done it, but he would have worn a hat and been like,
yeah.
And PJ was like, bring on the mayonnaise.
Yep.
PJ said double it. So yeah, it was great. That's the thing, man. It's fun, and that's what I saw a Michigan friend of the pod, Third and Blue.
Yep,
I believe Third and Blue. He posted a picture of PJ getting the Mayo bath, and he said, "If you don't think that Minnesota is one of the most fun football schools, then I assume you don't get invited to parties.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's the thing. That's what the Minnesota program under PJ Fleck is. It's fun.
It's
fun. The players have fun. The fans have fun.
Yep.
And it does seem to drive our rivals crazy that we're having so much fun.
Yeah, they hate it. And I think I made a post about that, about Kirk Ferentz hating fun and, Wisconsin fans hating seeing other people have fun. So, but hey, I love it. We're having a great time and we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep this party rolling.
How did the postseason go for Iowa and Wisconsin this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, Iowa made it to a bowl game, pretty good one. They didn't win, but then I think Wisconsin, they made it to,
no. Wait, they didn't. We should stop though talking crap before we go on to talk about the we'll talk about, we don't have that much time left because we are on a time limit. We are on a 2-hour time limit in this pod. But we have to at least preview the college football playoff games. So we can move on from the Mayo Bowl. It was a lot of fun. The Gophers went out 8-5, 5-4 Big Ten. It was a good end of the season.
Yeah.
It was a season where they accomplished a lot of things and they were never outclassed. They, even against Penn State, they had them. They, darn near beat them. And Penn State, we're about to talk about right now in the college football playoff semifinal.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right. So Thursday, January 9th, will be played the Orange Bowl, the first of the 2 semifinal games, where the 13-1, number 7 Notre Dame Fighting Irish face off against the 13-2, number 6 Penn State Nittany Lions. This is a 6:30 p.m. game on ESPN. The line is Notre Dame by 2. It opened at -1.5, so it's moved a half point in Notre Dame's direction. This is a tale of 2 teams with fantastic defenses and very different sorts of offenses. Penn State relies on its ground game with running backs Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, but they also throw the ball a ton to tight end Tyler Warren, who is quite simply the best tight end in the country and the Mackey Award winner. Penn State has had poor wide receiver play this year, but Harrison Wallace has stepped up late in the year and is turning into a better player at that position. James Franklin has publicly endorsed him and said that he's just scratching the surface of what he can be. So they're going to need him to contribute to have a chance in this game, I think. Drew Aller is a traditional drop back QB. He is good. He's extremely good. His accuracy on deep balls kind of comes and goes. And he isn't one to force the ball into coverage unless things look good. So he can leave yards on the table being too conservative sometimes. That's the knock on Aller. But that said, he's an extremely good quarterback. And even when he'll miss some that make you scratch your head, but then he'll hit 8 or 10 in a row, and some of them will be really tough. He's got a big arm. He can make all the NFL throws. He's a really good player. For the Irish, they also have a 2-headed running back attack with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. But unlike Penn State, Riley Leonard is not a traditional drop back kind of QB. Leonard is a running QB. And Notre Dame will rise and fall as their run game goes. Their leading receiver, Bo Collins, only has 458 yards for the year. So Aller has thrown for almost 1,000 yards more than Leonard this season. So this game is simple, John, to me. Can either team stop the run? If one team can run the ball, then that team will win. If both teams can run the ball, then this game could get nutty. But there's no way Notre Dame wins unless they run the ball effectively. It's just not happening. So, John, what do you think about the Orange Bowl?
I mean, I'm leaning Penn State. I think that Penn State does have more weapons. I think if you have a healthy Tyler Warren, man, there's not a lot that he's essentially uncoverable. Like I don't know how people can. You saw it during the Boise State game. You've seen it all season long. Like, it's so difficult to stop Tyler Warren for an entire game. You can stop him
for a while.
Yes.
But eventually, man, he just gets away from you.
It's insane. So, yeah, you can, for an entire game, it's just not possible. So, I think Drew Aller is going to be able to make it happen. I think Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton are both kind of coming into their own right here in the stretch. They looked amazing against Boise State. I do expect this to be a better defense, obviously, with Notre Dame because it's a solid defense. But you have a more balanced attack coming at you where Notre Dame, yeah, they've got a great run game. But so did Boise State. And Ashton Genty only had 104 yards on 30 carries and averaged 3.5 yards. I know Notre Dame definitely has a better offensive line, better run blocking.
Yes.
But I just have more faith in Penn State. They've been tested. They've gone against similar teams all season in the Big Ten and done pretty well. I think, the question mark for me and what I've been hearing is whether or not Abdul Carter is going to be healthy.
So he posted something on social media, which Penn State fans think means he's healthy.
Okay.
I don't know what he posted, but he posted something and everybody was like, oh, so Abdul's good to go.
Okay.
So I think he's going to be okay. But yeah, I think that's a big factor in this game because he's the best player on the field on either side of the ball for either team.
So I think, but even still, I think Penn State, even without Abdul Carter, I think Penn State still is better and good enough to stop this Notre Dame offense. Now, if all of a sudden Notre Dame can find a way to pass the ball better, well, then this could be more of a coin flip. I'm leaning Penn State, not by much, but I have Penn State winning this game 31-28.
Okay. So very close. I keep coming back to the fact that Notre Dame needs to be able to run the ball. And as good as they are on the offensive line and as great as Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are, and those guys are great. And Riley Leonard is a very good running quarterback, but he's not Vince Young or Cam Newton or something. Do you know what I mean? He's a good runner. He's not a transcendent runner.
Yes.
He can be stopped. And I think if you're going to win a national championship with a running quarterback in this day and age, I think he has to be like a Lamar Jackson, like a Cam Newton, like a Vince Young. Like he's got to be that transcendent athlete. Because here's what I think Tom Allen's going to do for Penn State. I think Penn State's going to play one high safety all game. I think they're going to play man up on the outside. I think they're going to blitz the gaps, and they're going to say, "Hey, throw the ball."
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Notre Dame can do it. They can throw it a little bit. Face on is pretty good. He has his moments, Bo Collins, whatever. But like the other thing is Notre Dame is missing 3 or 4 starters on defense. They're down some serious depth. Yeah. Notre Dame is defensively. And I just think Notre Dame has gotten by, they kind of got lucky in that Georgia had a backup quarterback who had his moments, but also this wasn't, a vintage Georgia team. I'm really impressed with Notre Dame up front. I think this is going to be close, right? Yeah. I don't think it's going to be a blowout at all. I think they'll score a little bit, maybe early in the game. But once Penn State figures out what the tricks are, I just don't think Notre Dame's going to go that far.
Yeah.
So I have the Penn State Nittany Lions 27, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish 20. And I just think, man, I said it last game and I was wrong. But Tyler Warren's going to go off.
Yeah.
And I know that the Notre Dame, the Pro Football Focus numbers for Notre Dame are really good, but they got torn up by USC. We saw it.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to get torn up by Tyler Warren. And I think that's the difference in this game. And I think Tyler Warren is going to be the MVP of the game if they reward an MVP. And Penn State's going to win. And that's what I think is going to happen. All right, moving on to the Cotton Bowl. Friday, January 10th. This is the number 8, 12-2 Ohio State Buckeyes versus the number 5, 13-2 Texas Longhorns. It's a 6:30 p.m. game on ESPN. The line is Ohio State by 6. Both of these teams have incredible defenses. They have the kind of defenses that can completely wreck what you are doing offensively. Texas is led by QB Quinn Ewers, who has thrown for over 3,000 yards this year and has 29 TDs to just 11 picks, but has been at times playing hurt. And I don't know how much velocity he has on his passes, which is why he struggled at times in the red zone. Texas has. At running back, Quintravian Wisner has over 1,000 yards rushing this year, so he's a big threat on the ground. At wide receiver, Matthew Golden's a big weapon with 936 yards and 9 TDs on the year. For the Buckeyes, QB Will Howard having an awesome year with nearly 3,500 yards passing, 32 TDs, and 9 picks. but it's all about the incredible duo at wide receiver in Frosh wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, who has 1,224 yards receiving and 14 TDs, and senior Emeka Egbuka, who has 896 yards receiving and 10 TDs. Ohio State is 4 deep in difference makers at receiver, but these guys are the best of the best in the country. They are an incredible, amazing, no notes. To me, John, this game's going to come down to which defense is more successful stopping the juggernaut they are faced with. How do you see this breaking down?
Look, after what I saw Ohio State do to Oregon, Oregon had negative 23 rushing yards.
Negative.
They did throw for almost 300 yards because Dylan Gabriel is Dylan Gabriel, and they have, Trayshawn Holden and Tez Johnson and whatnot. So, of course, they were going to be able to throw the ball at times. But this Ohio State team, the way that they are playing right now, is a freaking juggernaut, and I don't think that there is a single team out there that can stop them. Only they can stop them. Yeah. So the only team that is going to lose for the rest of the way, or the only team that I think the only team. Sorry, let me start over. The only team that can stop Ohio State is Ohio State. That's, I guess, all I want to say. Texas, I'm sorry, no chance. I don't think they have a shot.
No chance. Okay.
I don't think Texas has the ponies. If Oregon couldn't put up a fight at this point in time of the season, I don't think Texas has a freaking shot, man. I think Ohio State made Oregon look stupid. And Oregon is incredible. An incredible team. I don't think Texas is as good as Oregon, and I don't think that Texas can even hold a candle to Ohio State. I think Ohio State might make some mistakes, might show up and a little slow possibly, or falter a little bit in the second half here and there and make some mistakes like they did against Oregon and let up a little bit. But I just don't see anyone stopping these Ohio State Buckeyes. I think that Ohio State wins this game, something similar to the Oregon game. I'm just going to say, 42 to 20.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was looking into what worked so well against Texas, and I realized something, man. Chip Kelly is I don't want to get too much into scheme, but Chip Kelly is an inside zone coach. He's been running inside zone for 40 years. After the Michigan game, Ohio State realized inside zone didn't work. So they ran counter on half of their runs against Tennessee and Oregon. Half. And what running counter did is it gets a couple lead blockers out there, which creates more space for Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. And to change that dramatically, it doesn't sound like much, but that is dramatically changing your run game. So not only is Ohio State doing awesome stuff, but what is Chip Kelly going to do next? He's got something else. They haven't run Will Howard all year.
No.
They have that in the bag if they need it.
Yep.
But will they need it? Probably not, because I'm with you. Texas is great. And everyone's I know somebody told me, he's this Texas defense won't get run over by Ohio State like that. I was why? What makes you think that they won't?
Yeah.
What makes you think that anyone on this planet can cover Jeremiah Smith? And when Will Howard is playing the way Will Howard is playing,
yep.
The only way Texas has a chance is if Will Howard misses a lot and throws some picks and misses passes on third down. And I just think it's not going to happen because we've seen Will Howard get better and better. And I think the speech he gave after the Michigan loss about how he let the fan base down is like the Tim Tebow speech when he said, we're going to be the hardest working team after they lost that early season game and they went on and win the national title. And dude, there are just too many team of destiny vibes around Ohio State. And I thought if anyone could stop them, it was going to be Oregon. And they ran, it was 34-0 in the second quarter.
Wild.
And when I saw this spread, I was 6 points. The spread should be 20.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. I've got Ohio State 38, Texas 17.
Okay, pretty similar.
Because Ohio State, the other thing is this defensive line has just been playing better and better and better and better and better.
And those DBs you cannot get them off you. It's insane. No, dude.
And they've gotten better too, dude. Igbinison used to have all those pass interference. He's not doing that stuff anymore now either. He's gotten more disciplined. It's like they're all just locked in on the prize.
Yep.
And it's scary, man. And it's also really impressive. And it's exciting to watch. And I think I thought the real national title game was Ohio State, Oregon. I don't think there's anybody left in this field. I mean, dude, if Ohio State draws Notre Dame, they might win by 70 points.
Yep.
Because Notre Dame's not going to be able to run on Ohio State.
No.
So, like, I think, dude, think about it. We could be headed for a Big Ten title game.
Be amazing. Be great.
Paul
be the
Feinbaum
best
is going to lose his mind. Kirk Herbstreit is going to take a vacation. It's going to be beautiful. Beautiful.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's it. Do we have anything else?
That's it, man.
Cover? Yeah.
We're good. Anything else you want to say before we do the thing?
No, as always, if you want to find us, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that's good stuff. You can want to find us on Twitter. You can find us at We Live for B1GSat, and just let us know what you think. Leave us comments, like us, review us, retweet, all that good stuff. So,
all right, we'll send it out before, and we'll have one more before the championship game.
All right.